Welcome back, everybody, to the Derby City Fandom podcast. My name is Kenny, and I got one simple question for you two gentlemen. Do you know the way?
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
All right.
I love
so
that.
in celebration of May the 4th coming out, and for us cultured folk, the Revenge of the 5th.
Sith. Jesus. You can't even
Revenge of the 5th, damn it.
Revenge of the 5th, is that what we're doing it?
Right? We are going to be talking about all things Mandalorian today. Mandalorian just wrapped up not too long ago, and realizing that we haven't talked about it yet, why not? It is the summer of Star Wars, after all.
It is pretty much the Star Wars summer with all these shows coming out, which I'm super excited for.
Which shows are coming out?
Well, recently,
Where to start?
Well,
as of lately, we've had the Bad Batch, we've had Andor, we've had the Mandalorian season 3 wrap up, and then come in August we have the Ahsoka series coming out. So yeah, and I'm sure there's more that I've probably forgotten.
Yeah.
But
Weren't they going to try to do a series on Death Watch or Ghost Crew? Maybe not. I don't remember. We'd have to look that up for a later time. But yes, all things Mandalorian. So I know quite a bit about the Mandalorian, I guess, backstory prior to the great Star Wars canon purge of April 2014. So I'm not quite as familiar, admittedly, with the newer canon for their stuff, but I've watched The Mandalorian. I think everybody in the room has. Jake?
Yeah, I really liked it. I'm a fan. There was one episode I didn't like, but imagine I have company there.
Fair enough. So, Colin, where would you like to begin?
let's start where we normally begin with our scoring via critics.
Fair enough.
I'm curious, yeah. I'm excited to see the scoring because I've heard mixed reviews on season 3.
All right.
I'm a fan, but
So let's start with IMDb. Y'all want to take any guesses on where we're standing on the Mandalorian at the moment?
For season 3?
7 out of 5.
Yeah, go ahead. You said 7.5
7, yeah. Well, I said 7 out of 5, but I meant to say 7.5.
out of 10.
I like 7 out of 5.
7 out of 5. So man, that's
7.5.
7.5 out of 10 is Jake's guess. What about you, Kenny?
With one particular episode in mind, I think it is an 8 instead of a 9 for me.
Oh.
Jake, you laugh, but Kenny's actually the closest. It's actually an 8.7 out of 10 on IMDb.
Damn. Okay.
Wow. I mean, I believe it. I really liked it. I probably lowballed it. I just, like I said, I think there was one episode that drove me up the wall. So I imagine I'm not the only one, and you guys could probably guess which one I'm talking about. So that's why I kind of dinged it a little bit. So I don't know if that's what is your logic too, Kenny.
We'll see if we're talking about the same episode then.
Ooh.
And just so we're moving on to the next one, Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 90%.
Okay.
So I thought that was
That feels appropriate.
Nice.
appropriate, maybe a touch too high. I don't know. I would definitely give it an 8 in that range-ish, 80%, 8 something, but I wouldn't go more than 9 for sure.
Okay.
That's my personal opinion.
Comparing it to all the newer Star Wars, including the movies, like I believe it. I could believe people liking this, well, the Mandalorian season overall, but also season 3. I don't know, more so than Boba Fett and the newer movies. So I see it.
My personal opinion, the newer movies sucked, except Rogue One.
Rogue One was
freaking
great.
amazing.
I think everybody would agree Rogue One
yeah.
is best of all the newer movies.
Yes. All right. So I forgot about Rogue One, and that's honestly it's probably my favorite Star Wars movie. So yeah, if you compare it to Rogue One, like Rogue One should probably be 90%. like 9 out of 10, and then Mandalorian's probably somewhere in the 8s. Yeah, I agree with you, Kyle.
Interesting. Okay.
All right. So I guess before we go too deep into the series itself, how familiar are you, Jake, with the concept of what it means to be a Mandalorian?
This is the way. More so now after watching the series. I still, I never watched, I still have yet to watch the animated. So I know, are they in the Bad Batch or one of them?
They're all over.
They're all over.
Like Bo-Katan. So I know, talking to other friends and whatnot, they're like, oh yeah, you need to watch the animated series to kind of. It didn't bother me. I know I've heard from people, and I'd like to get your all's opinion on it too. Like the series, a lot of people said like, oh, if you never seen the other animated series, like you would be confused and lost. And I never did, but like it didn't matter to me. Like I really enjoyed it regardless.
That's good.
So how much did you truly, like for me, like how much did I truly miss by not watching the other?
It depends on which animated source you then proceed to start with.
Hold on. Pause. I agree with what I know where you're going with this. So in one hand, no, you don't necessarily have to watch the animated series.
You don't.
To understand where things are going in this live action. But you have more respect for the characters and you know exactly, you're trying to follow exactly what's going on in the live action. So in one hand, no, you don't have to see it, but in the other hand, like you have so much more respect, and I feel like you have to watch the animated series.
Yeah, I mean, I still, like I said, I didn't watch the animated. I still really enjoyed it. I'm sure there was probably references and jokes and whatever I didn't get, and I probably agree with you, Colin. There's like more backstory that the dots didn't connect for me, but it didn't matter. It was so good. They did a good enough job for me to still follow along.
So realistically, you are not missing much, as Colin's kind of said. Just some fun little tie-ins, right? So we're primarily introduced to the Mandalorians in terms of the animated stuff back when Clone Wars, the animated stuff, came out in 2008, I believe. And then they continue with some of the Mandalorian stuff in the Rebels series.
Yes.
So from there, you're kind of introduced to like some of the different clans that are involved with like the Mandalorians.
Yep.
But it's not entirely the most important things in the world.
No.
At least at the time.
And you see that the lore overall is covered in the animated series, rather that be Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels. But I'm glad that they kind of touched base on that and expanded on the lore in this live action of The Mandalorian.
Sure. So I guess I'll start off at the very beginning. Our first introduction to the Mandalorians is through Boba Fett back in The Empire Strikes Back, with the main kind of concept of them being like a super elite, like commando-esque unit that was supposed to kind of be serving the Empire. That was their original idea. That then got boiled down to being a singular bounty hunter, Boba Fett. So although Boba Fett in particular is a Mandalorian, you don't really see him in his first introduction do anything that actually makes him a Mandalorian, so to speak.
Well, technically, he
has a fucking jetpack, man.
Technically, he's a clone.
Yes, he's a clone, but he's
is he?
also...
He's an unaltered clone.
Is that why people say he's not actually Mandalorian?
Well, so to call back to the Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian / Din had called him, like, you know, no longer a true Mandalorian because he walks around without the helmet on and all that stuff.
So basically, it kind of depends on which clan you're in, like how disciplined you are with the
Yes.
whole helmet thing. Like some clans are like, if you remove your helmet, you're no longer a Mandalorian.
Yes, the
and you
children
have
of the
to-
Watch, as they call them.
Right. And so it varies. And so, I mean, like, me personally, like, if you're a Mandalorian, you can take your helmet off. Otherwise, how you gonna...
I mean, you do see the fun instances of him struggling to like eat and drink without taking the helmet off.
Oh, I love Bo-Katan's comment when she like first joined their whatever that tribe is. She's like, how do we? What do I do to eat?
You have to walk off and eat alone.
Yeah, I
That's
think
a
that
legitimate question.
I think the technical ruling that his particular sect says is that you cannot remove your helmet in front of another living organism.
So going back to Boba Fett. So Boba Fett's obviously from the original movies.
Yes.
All right. So is there any other references to Mandalorians, like maybe even from episodes 1 through 3 or whatever?
So in 1 through 3, we are then introduced to Jango Fett, who Boba Fett is a clone of. And Boba Fett, not to make this any more confusing than it needs to be, is a clone of Jango, but is not altered in the same way that the stormtroopers, the original like clone troopers, are, where he grows up like a normal human being at the normal human rate, instead of like being like a year old and looking like a full-sized adult.
Right, exactly.
So Jango refers to Boba as his son when they are the same person.
Yeah. He basically raises him as his son, even though it's...
So is Boba Fett in episodes 1 through 3?
Boba Fett, yes, actually. In
I
the
don't remember.
He's in episode 2.
in episode 2, in the Geonosian arena, that is where we see the only
Well,
introduction to
technically,
Jango.
we're introduced to him first on Camino when
Right.
Obi-Wan gets there, and
he's just
is
kind of there.
first introduced to the clone army and so on and so on. And then, yes, we later see him again in the arena.
The big climactic final set of scenes.
That's when you see Jango get his freaking head cut off, which was pretty freaking dope. By Mace Windu.
Yep. But yeah, so that is like our first, I guess, live action introduction to Mandalorians as a concept. We then see them appear in Marvel's run of Star Wars back in the 80s. And then again when Dark Horse kind of takes it over from there. Of which we kind of see Mandalorians become a creed as opposed to a race of people, like officially.
Right.
So then we get to deal with all the fun mechanics that come with foundlings as a concept, right? Like how do you keep your population stable when you're constantly at war? Well, you basically adopt,
Air quotes.
air quotes, heavy air quotes, you adopt the kids of the people that you murder on whichever planet you invade, and you indoctrinate them into the creed.
That's some Thanos level
Kinda.
lifestyle.
I wouldn't go that far.
He's a bit more extreme. Thanos is a bit more extreme. But that is not even kind of, that is how, at least in the prior canon, they kind of kept up their numbers. Is that they would just constantly recruit orphans from war.
Foundlings.
But this is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
I'm never going to get tired of that.
I absolutely love it. I really do.
But so from there, we are introduced, I guess, to a handful of other concepts just over the years. The concept of the main leader of the Mandalorians being a person with the title Mandalore. And all the different, I guess, people that inherit that title over the years. And what it means to actually be Mandalore and how you become Mandalore. Now, in the Mandalorian series, The primary way is that you have the Dark Saber.
Yep.
I mean, being of the royal bloodline also helps, I suppose, for Bo-Katan. But it was primarily kind of implied that whoever wields the Dark Saber is the rightful ruler of the Mandalorian race / creed. People. We'll call them a people.
But prior to all that, they were a what's the word I'm looking for? No violence. What's that word?
Pacifist?
Warlike.
Yeah. So they were pacifists.
They tried to be
They
pacifist.
tried with Satine Wren.
Yeah. Yes,
And
and
then she ended
it
up-
worked for a while.
A while is
A very short while.
yeah, and then she ends up getting killed
Yep. So
by Darth Maul.
yes, we'll get to that because that's actually kind of important to the whole backstory.
Indeed. Sorry, I
But-
jumped ahead.
No, you're good. So I am going to jump back 4,000 years prior to the prequel series to the Old Republic days.
Let's do it.
So back then, the Mandalorians were kind of like the Sith, if you remember our Sith episode, where they were just constantly looking to expand, constantly just trying to conquer. There was honor in war, very Viking-like, very Spartan. You know, the noble death is won on the battlefield. And they gave the Republic a good run for their money. They had these fun things called Basilisk war droids, which they kind of hijacked from one of the planets they conquered, but they are, well, war droids. They look like little wasps things, and they got like no less than like 18 different guns on them.
Yeah, it's pretty well armored.
Yeah, it's pretty well armored as well, and they are capable of, exiting and re-entry for the atmosphere. So you had Mandalorians like riding these things like horses and just completely demolishing cities. And you see that in like the Old Republic game. You see that in the different comics from back in the 80s. And they just went on a tear. They almost won if you didn't have Revan and Malik intervene, the Jedi Order in particular. And Revan came up with the idea all the way back then that they were going to do so much damage to the Mandalorians that they could never be a proper empire again. And that involved using some fun tech that can only best be described as a gravity bomb and blew up one of their main home planets.
Sure did.
Yes, Malachor 5 and everything involved with that.
I believe you see it in the animated series when they're going to Mandalore, and that moon is basically kind of just
A bunch of rock.
basically like half moon, the rest of it rock, kind of just floating nearby.
Yep, that's exactly what they did. They basically cracked the planet.
Pretty cool.
So, in the Old Republic series, be it the MMO game or the Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic games, you don't really see much of the Mandalorians because there's like only like 100+ of them left.
Do you see the origin of the Dark Saber?
You do not. So that's where I'm getting at. So to be dubbed as Mandalore back in the Old Republic era, you just needed to find Mandalore's particular suit, his helmet in particular.
Yes.
Now, you could also become Mandalore a different way. You could challenge Mandalore to combat, and if you beat him,
Then you become
then
the
you
rightful-
become Mandalore because, might makes right. You are clearly the one that is worthy to be in charge of our warlike race.
and that happens multiple times.
It does.
Multiple times.
Multiple times. Now, in the Old Republic I guess, timeline, that particular individual becomes Canderous Ordo, was the Mandalorian's name, and I can best describe what he looks at like as Ron Perlman shoved into Mandalorian armor, which I think is great. But yeah, so you didn't have the concept of the Dark Saber just yet. But fast forward 4,000 years, where the clans are more established, they've kind of gone away from being terribly inclusive with who could take the creed and who could not.
Yes.
And from there, it is more clan-based alongside the Dark Saber being like, the crowning item, so to speak.
So, for those of you that don't know, Tar Vizsla,
Yes.
he was the first Mandalorian to be inducted into the Jedi Order.
Correct.
And he basically is the one that built the Dark Saber, correct?
He is the one that creates it, yes.
And so, kind of refresh us, Kenny, a little bit about that. So he builds the Dark Saber, and I'm having trouble remembering. The saber was taken to the Jedi Temple.
Yes, forcefully, because that was a part of, I guess, the Old Republic, kind of like the High Republic, Old Republic, kind of weird in between time,
You're right.
where we don't actually have much lore, but it is what it is. So yeah, the Jedi Orders just basically retakes the Dark Saber, but then the Mandalorians raid Coruscant, the temple in particular, and
Correct.
take it back.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, of which then it falls into House Kryze? House
Kreese.
Kryze, thank you.
Right?
Kryze.
Kreese.
I don't remember.
Kreese. Yeah.
But then House Kryze gets their hand on it for a while, of which then we have like Bo-Katan and Satine kind of do all of their different things.
Right.
And before Moff Gideon does the big bad and start the purge for the second time.
Total bombardment.
Right?
Fucked that city up. And you kind of see that in the earlier Mandalorian series. And
Yes.
so they kind of just, have a little live action moment where their ships flying over and bombing
Yeah,
Mandalore.
glassing the planet.
That's Moff Gideon. They show that in one of the animated series.
Well, they don't.
No,
I don't
not the
believe
animated.
Moff Gideon shows up in the animated stuff.
No, it's more of a live action.
It's more the live action where Moff is introduced. You see Bo-Katan and you do see Satine in the animated stuff, though.
So yeah, Bo-Katan, she's in Rebels and as well as Clone Wars.
Yes.
Yep. So that's why it's important, bias opinion, that you should watch the animated series
Yep.
as well as The Mandalorian.
You know what? I got a fun side thing that we can do. If
do
we
it.
can hit 50 subscribers, I will force Jake to watch this Clone Wars show.
You're gonna force him?
Well, I'll do it.
Politely force him.
When we hit 50 subscribers, I will watch whichever Star Wars animated series you guys want me.
No, I disagree with this entirely. We're getting off subject here, but you should just watch it because you want to watch it because it's fun.
It's
And
a good watch.
It's dude, like, all right, the animated series
I don't know
is
how many
made
more
for
ways.
children, obviously, but the storyline
Is important.
is important.
Going back to the storyline, so in the live action, Bo-Katan, they mentioned a couple times her sister.
Satine.
Wren.
Otherwise, the Duchess of Mandalore.
Correct.
So
she was the pacifist.
She was the pacifist. She was the leader of Mandalore, obviously,
For a brief time.
for a
Yes.
brief time. So was she leading when Moff Gideon started purging?
Yes.
Yes.
And during this particular time, you also have her interaction with Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Whose interaction?
Satine's.
Oh, cool.
Yes,
Yes,
they
she-
have
A romantic relationship.
Nice. Good for
It's-
him.
Well, it never develops into anything, but in
it basically
Clone Wars,
Obi-Wan's
Jake,
going to have little Rugrats running around now, isn't he?
no, but here's the
No.
thing. He openly admits in the Clone Wars that if Satine had asked him to leave the Order, he would have.
The funny thing is, she ends up getting murdered, like I said
front of
earlier,
him.
in front of him
By Darth Maul. Who, because of the traditions, if you wield the Dark Saber and then beat the previous owner of the Dark Saber in combat, you become Mandalore.
And so Darth Maul beat, who was it? Vizsla?
I believe, yes.
So who defeats Darth Maul to get the Dark Saber back?
Well, I guess technically Kenobi defeats him like permanently.
Yeah, he
But-
kills him, but
I forget
the
how he
saber-
loses track of the saber.
yeah,
He gets it stolen from him. I forget the actual details there.
Who takes the Dark Saber?
I don't
I don't
know.
remember. If you remember, comment in the comment section,
So
please.
the other question I have is from Mandalorian Season 3
Sure, go for it.
is Bo-Katan and Moff Gideon.
Mm-hmm.
They have a couple instances where I guess he takes the Dark Saber from her.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point she gets it again. So was she ever the
Yes.
So after her sister, did she ever lead? Or by that time she was
Yes.
always it was all
So-
so fractioned that
So, yeah, I guess yes to both of those. So, what happens, and she describes it kind of briefly. In the third season, I don't remember the second season too terribly well, but she describes that she offered up the Dark Saber to Moff Gideon so that the Empire would not go through with the Purge.
They did
more
it.
or less.
They did
but they
it.
did anyways after she gave it up. And that was the big sticking point, right? And then when you have Din Djarin beat Moff Gideon for the first time, he gets the possession of the Dark Saber and then presents it to Bo-Katan, and they do like a combat sequence.
Yeah, which kind of pissed me off a little bit in one hand, where he offers it up to Bo-Katan, but she can't take it because
It has to be won
It has to
through
be won in
combat.
combat, exactly. So later on in season 3, we find out that he offers it up again, but technically, she did defeat the opponent
that had defeated him.
that had defeated him. So it's a technicality. So, like, in one hand, I feel like that's kind of like a cop out.
Yeah.
But in the other hand, if you're going to be technical about it, then I support it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like the story arc of the Dark Saber in season 3. It seems like the start of the season, it's very important. The Dark Saber itself is very like crucial to be the leader, but by the end of it, obviously it gets destroyed.
Yes.
And at the end of it,
Spoiler.
Yeah, spoiler cast.
Which also pisses me off, by the way.
What, that
Like,
they broke it?
Well,
That
yeah,
it broke so easily?
that it broke so easily, for one. Two, now we're just like left with, okay,
Democracy is what you're left with.
all of this storyline leading up to the Dark Saber and how important
All the
it is
intrigue
how,
and all of this.
Yeah, exactly. And then you come to find that it's just going to be destroyed. So what now? Who's going to be the leader of Mandalore? Is there going to be a Mandalore?
I really liked that. I thought watching the Dark Sabers like development and the story arc, not really Dark Sabers, but the Mandalorians, because they were so fixated on it in the beginning, like, oh, if you wield it, you're the leader. But by the end of it, they're like,
You know what? We should just get along.
yeah, like at the end of it, like it's just an object. Like maybe there's a better way for us to.
And maybe that's where they're going with it, which is
Is
fine.
there-
But I feel like
I
they
really liked it. I
no.
thought that was a-
Hear me out. Hear me out.
Okay,
All right.
I had a question after I hear this.
Okay,
out.
so like, if they're going to destroy the Dark Saber and they want everybody to get along, fine, whatever. But there needs to be more of a creative way of doing it, not just him freaking squeezing it and it breaks and the freaking kyber crystal is no longer effective in it. Whatever, fine. But all of this back history that I've watched, as well as the animated series, to just get to this point, it kind of pisses me the fuck off. So why have all of this freaking backstory about how important the Dark Saber is, and you become the leader of the of Mandalore, to only have the Dark Saber destroyed?
Well, that's a part of the whole democratic, I guess, process that they're trying to go through now.
Yeah, I thought
it's like they united all of the households to fight against the Imperial remnants / Moff Gideon. And from there, you see that there's no longer really a need for there to be different sects within the creed.
Correct.
So destroying the one object that ties everything, I guess, separated apart from each other is a good way to show that they're actually trying to move forward.
Yeah.
It's thousands of years of history just shot down the drain.
Yes,
Well,
crushed in a grip.
It's funny you say that. So maybe that's probably why the contrast between your opinion and my opinion on it, because I don't know the history of it all. So I was just going off of the season 3.
So that kind of helps you a little
Yeah,
bit.
it helps
Like
me a little
if you
bit.
just watch The Mandalorian, not having watched The Mandalorian or
Yeah.
the animated series, yeah, sure, I think you'd be all about that.
And
I think it is a cool story arc.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I have a biased opinion. I
Yeah.
don't know.
And put myself in your shoes, like I'd probably say something similar. Be like, man, I have all this history. I watched all this,
Yeah.
watched all these videos on it, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's gone. Like it's
Sure.
not important. I'm like, yeah, I can see how that'd be frustrating. But
So-
like I didn't have to. I just got to witness the development of the Mandalorian people, and like they get away from, hey, this is just an object. Doesn't really mean anything.
Right. Now, part of the idea behind the Dark Saber is that it is, I guess, just from a concept, is designed to basically have the particular wielder stand out from other Jedi. Because the particular... killing me. Just tell me to mute you next time.
We can cut that part out.
Sure. I swear. Okay.
Interrupt you. Can we go on?
Continue.
But the design for the Dark Sabers are originally just basically so that the wielder can stand out from the other, like, blue, green, red, yellow lightsaber colors, right?
Purple. Don't forget.
Purple, which, they only ever added because Samuel Jackson's favorite color was purple, and he wanted his character to also stand out from the other Jedi. I'm going to go on a slight tangent here. The only reason why the lightsabers are different colors originally was because they stood out better in the background, like in the sandy backgrounds of like Tatooine, because all of like the original like lightsaber colors were just going to be blue and red, but they decided that the blue that they were using was too close to the color of the sky for the backgrounds that they were using, so they turned it green.
Interesting.
All of like the original promo, Luke has a blue lightsaber.
This
Interesting.
is true. And then there's pretty much, let's call it lore for why everybody
They're red.
Why everybody has different colors and what those
Yeah.
colors mean, and technicalities behind different types of sword fighting and
Yeah,
the
stances, styles, and all of that. There's this whole thing. Did you?
I think that's cool.
Going back
though.
to-
I mean, it's all made up, right? So it's like I think it's kind of cool.
Sure, but
What do you mean
it's one of those
made up?
like
this is real.
this is reality. It's long ago, so this stuff has already happened.
Sorry.
Yeah, how dare you?
How dare you? Okay, back to the Mandalorian. So one of the other kind of like fun details that they had no reason to ever include, like the Mandalorians have like their own like language, Mandoa. I forget the actual
I
pronunciation.
think it's Mandoa. It's like Mando.
I forget where
apostrophe
the
A.
apostrophe is.
It's after the O, I believe.
Okay.
If I'm wrong,
But-
make a comment in this
Yes.
comment section.
They created that language entirely because of a video game of which they needed, I guess, just like more like lyrical chants kind of stuff. You also see it written on Slave One, on Django's ship / Boba's ship.
Yep.
And that's really the only inclusion there, and then you see other fun stuff. But going back to the series itself, now that we have a general grasp of The Mandalorian, Jake, what was the episode that gave you the most grief? Because I want to see if it's the same one as mine. Mine in particular was the episode where they're showing the Imperial reintegration.
Yep.
Oh, you saw? Oh, on Coruscant?
Yes.
Oh, that was not the one I was thinking of.
Really? Okay.
Really. That was mine.
I was confused, like when I was watching it. Like I was kind of disappointed, but after finishing the series, I was like, okay, it all kind of connects, and I ended up really liking that episode after watching a few more episodes after it. So when I was watching it from the get go, I was like, where are they going with this? Like, is this season 3 just imploding? Like, I don't know.
Well, that was my impression, because up until that point, that was one of the longer episodes for the season. I think it tops at just over 50 minutes, because you have all the stuff going on Coruscant, as well as Din Djarin doing his stuff. But that poor scientist, man, he really just wanted to do right. But he had so many like death flags along the way that it kind of got upsetting that he survived until the very end, where he gets
Dr.
left.
Pershing.
Yeah, Dr. Pershing. L-52? L-51, something like that. I forget his designation.
Something like that. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
He's not really important anymore.
Nope. He existed to basically continue the cloning.
The cloning aspect with Grogu.
With Grogu.
Which then he's somewhat successful, but not.
Well, he's technically successful. That jumps ahead to the last episode where they had to deal with the clones, of which Moff Gideon says, like, oh, hey, these clones are going to be better than me because these clones have the one access to stuff that I don't, and that is the Force.
Kenny, did you like seeing, I don't remember the actor's name, but he played Jar Jar Binks, who they opted to let save Grogu? I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, that was funny.
That was
I appreciated that.
Ahmed Best.
Ahmed Best.
Ahmed,
yeah, he played a Jedi Killerin Beck, who ended up basically also saving Grogu during the Order 66.
Yep.
Which is actually the list of cameos I made note.
Okay.
Can we
sure.
Go,
let's hit cameos up.
Yeah, so to answer your question, full circle here, the episode I didn't care for was episode 6, which is the one with Jack Black. And Lizzo. Is that her name?
Lizzo, yeah.
Okay, I can see that.
So that's the one episode
fair,
I did not care for. And I'm a big Jack Black fan, so it wasn't necessarily Jack Black. Like, I thought that was a fun cameo, so I kind of enjoyed him. But just that whole, like, I don't know.
His weird, like, storyline with...
Yeah, it just didn't fit in with the rest of the season. So, like, at the end of the series with Mandalorian, well, the end of the series with Mando and Grogu, like, season 4 is going to be all these kind of one-off, adventurous...
Is that where you think it's going?
Yeah, I think that's where it's going. So it's like, I feel that episode would have been perfect for, like, the next season, if that's what they're going to end up doing. But for this season 3, I was like, this is just random and stupid, and I don't think it's funny, and I thought it was kind of annoying. So that was the one episode I didn't care for.
Okay. Colin.
What's that?
I think you wanted to talk about some cameos.
I did want to talk about some cameos.
Let's talk about some cameos.
Some of them I enjoyed more than others, obviously, but I made a list here of who we're going to talk about. So let's start with Wesley Kimmel. So that's Jimmy Kimmel's son. He played Ragnar, who was Paz Vizsla's son.
Yes.
So he was the little foundling in the series.
I just want to say, when they first introduced that particular scene, I thought that was a flashback until Jin flies in.
No, I basically knew that was going to be a foundling being introduced into the order.
Like how that process actually goes down.
Yeah, which I thought was really cool, and how they do their whole little spiel.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, this giant monster.
Space crocodile attacks.
Yeah. Anyway. I loved it. Yeah, so he ends up getting taken, and his father and a bunch of other Mandalorians get him back. Whatever. So who we just talked about, Ahmed Best, Kelleran Beck, Jedi, also plays Jar Jar Binks, which I absolutely loved.
I loved it.
Bringing back all of those old characters from the prequel.
He has some cameos in the actual films too. He is in the background of the bar in Attack of the Clones when Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin are going through the bar looking for that one changeling.
Yeah, that was right before they're just like going around trying to figure out like who shot like the poison dart, right?
Right, exactly. So you can see him in the background. So like all these cameos and stuff, like even George Lucas and his daughters play a cameo when Anakin goes up into the theater and he walks in and you kind of see some blue people. So that's George Lucas and his daughter just before Palpatine does the whole Darth Plagueis scenario. Yes. And then we move on to the fact that Zeb Aurelios was introduced just for a short second, talking to what was it, like Colonel, I forget what he was Captain Tarvos,
I believe, yes,
something like that. Yeah, so him and Zeb are talking. So the fact that Zeb has been introduced into the live action, freaking love, Finally, right? Because we only see him in Star Wars Rebels. So obviously he's going to have to make an introduction into the Ahsoka series coming out in August.
You said Zeb Aurelios?
Aurelios.
That's kind of, I'm looking at a photo. That's like the purplish guy where he's at the X-Wing pilot bar or whatever.
Yeah. And actually in that scene, you find Dave Filoni in it as well. He plays one of the X-Wing pilots, which I thought was pretty cool.
I love those scenes, that little island, where all the New Republic pilots are hanging out.
Yeah.
It was
that
fun.
honestly looks like a cool place to hang out. It's basically a freaking beach, and you just go there and you just sip on
beach with a bunch of greenhouses.
And I actually remember pausing Mandalorian because I was like checking out the bar because they had a bunch of like all the old different helmets and droids. I think there was an IG-11. Well, obviously Grogu.
IG-11 memory
Grogu
unit
points at it. Yeah, that bar was cool. I would love to go there. Hint, hint, Disney. Maybe you should create a.
They have. It's like if you go down to Disney World, I'm pretty sure they have a bar area just called the Cantina.
They do another one. They need another one.
They do. Unfortunately, I have not been there. It's on my bucket list.
Yeah,
it's on my bucket list.
It's really cool.
So moving on, we got Tim Meadows who plays Colonel Tuttle.
Yep.
Tim Meadows is a cool freaking cat. I like him a lot. His character definitely plays off I don't want to say a douchebag or anything, but he definitely he has that leadership role of a colonel.
He's the confident leader.
Right.
Yeah, I liked him. I like that whole story arc. Not to take too much time from Colin's cameo, but I like the Colonel Total. I like that whole story arc because it really shows kind of what's the bubbling up and the far outer rim of whatever's going to be the Empire's coming back. The bad guys are coming back because the New Republic, the rebellions, are so like mismanaged, and it's a lot more harder and difficult to manage than they really think. And I think he does a brilliant job at actually showing that plot and that story of like why there's so much unrest and like kind of like what the hell is going on, especially in the Outer Rim. So I think he did a phenomenal job to kind of really show the behind the scenes of what's actually taking place in the galaxy.
Yeah, he basically, I think he just wants to confirm exactly what's going on before he makes some rash action.
He's a good general. He's not going to go in
Colonel,
line.
not general. Colonel.
I apologize.
You should apologize.
So is he from the animated?
No.
No.
This is a new character entirely. But I like him. I
Just
like
a Tim Meadows fan, huh?
Yeah, dude. I enjoy him. He's a cool actor. And then we move on to Jack Black, who plays the Bombardier. I enjoy Jack Black
Yes, the Bombardier.
very much.
Is he a new character?
Pretty much.
What, the Bombardier? He's just like a guy,
Yeah.
effectively.
No. He asked if he's a new character, and I agreed. So,
Yeah.
yes, he's a new character. And then we got Lizzo, who plays the Duchess. I wish they would have came up with a new name because when I hear the Duchess, I think of
You think of Satine, don't you?
exactly. But whatever. Then we have Christopher Lloyd.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Lloyd.
Oh my God,
He somehow found his way in.
man! The fact that he was actually the bad guy in that episode.
Mm-hmm.
I wish they would have kept him around a little longer because Christopher Lloyd is freaking dude. I enjoy him in all of his other films, but the fact that he made a cameo as Commissioner, I forget what his name is, but
Hellgate.
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 Well, anyway, so do you all think that maybe we'll see him again, or was that just a one and done kind of thing?
Well, I wanted to ask this question earlier, and I think this is a decent enough segue. Have they confirmed that there's going to be another season?
Oh, I don't know. They leave it pretty open ended.
They do, but I think they also end the series well. It's just like, okay, he's adopted Grogu. Grogu's now in the process of becoming a foundling.
Okay,
But he's going to be
pause.
like a bounty hunter again. Like,
Hold
I
on,
think
pause.
Yes, but no.
I got one more cameo, and then I want to segue into what you're all talking about. Okay. So I have Simon Kay, he's the one dude. He plays Axe.
Oh,
He's the
Axe.
Mandalorian.
Axe Wolf.
So he was an Agents of Shield for
Yes.
Marvel. Mm-hmm. And I forget what character he plays, but I thought that was totally worth mentioning. So going back to what y'all were saying, let's do it.
So, I think without knowing if there is a confirmed fourth season or not, so don't tell me if there is just yet. So, I think that they wrapped this season up well enough that they don't need to, because they have Din adopting Grogu so that he can actually go through the process of becoming a Mandalorian foundling and then a Mandalorian later on down the line. We also see him properly settled down and properly. I'm not going to say he volunteers his services of kind of policing the Outer Rim, but he basically does. He gets independently contracted out on a case-by-case basis by the High Republic, by the New Republic. And I think that is, while they probably could have done a little bit something different in the ending scene where they just show Grogu levitating the toad out of the water and then just kind of doing a very cinematic just circle closure transition.
Right.
I feel like they wrapped up the season well enough that they don't need to have a fourth. But my question is there a fourth?
I don't know.
So here's where I come in. I like where your head's at, Kenny, but they have to do a season 4. Reason being, I want to see how that relationship between Din and Grogu evolve. And their relationship from season 1 to season 3, you see that relationship evolve, and they have that, father-son kind of figure, adopted, whatever. I want to see that evolve more, because obviously season 3 they got significantly closer,
Right.
and so the fact that he's been adopted as a foundling and he's going to raise him into basically being a Mandalorian, air quotes. I don't necessarily know where they're going to go with that, but I want to see that relationship evolve and see him, Grogu, older. So not just this little baby, but maybe a little more.
So
Just an older version of Grogu.
You think they'll fast forward quite a bit or something?
Yeah,
they
gotta-
have to, because they talk about it in that first season where some alien races age differently. So they were just kind of spitballing. It wasn't like anything official, but they make the comment that, the child could already be like 80 years old.
Yeah, I totally get that, but like, let's fast forward a little bit, or maybe, I don't know. Like, I want to see that relationship evolve more.
Yeah.
But my other reason for there has to be a season 4 is when Grogu basically uses the Force to protect Din and Bo from that explosion, and you see Moff Gideon, air quotes, die. I'm not necessarily convinced that Moff Gideon is dead, because we're left
there's
off
no
like
corpse,
he's
right?
Yeah, like the previous season or season 1, whatever it was. You kind of see him taken off to be a prisoner, but then we find out later he actually escaped and started doing his own thing on Mandalore. Why all of a sudden does he just die with 1, maybe 2 episodes of introduction?
Well, because space fuel explosion is pretty well good, like a sure kind of kill thing, outside of, I guess, like, Palpatine and like the whole Death Star explosion stuff and the mirrors. I digress.
So my whole thing...
You constantly see them use fire against each other because the blasters aren't going to work, but the fire still does for the suit, right? So I think that his particular suit is not fireproof, much like all of the other ones aren't. So I think while it's weird that you don't see like the armor left over or anything like that, and there's just like a pile of dust or something because he got incinerated, I do think he's dead.
I don't think he's dead, dude. I really don't think.
I think he's dead. And once again, I never watched the other series, so you guys probably know these characters. But remember later in the season, Colin, Moff Gideon was talking to like this round table. They kept mentioning the General Thrawn guy.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think
Thrawn's back. So if you watch Star Wars Rebels, you would know who that is.
Yes.
Well, I think he's going to be the next villain. So I think Moff Gideon's dead. And I think they're going to pivot to whoever this General Thrawn dude or Admiral, whatever, Grand Admiral, whatever.
I would also want to point out that anybody that they bring back to life, air quotes, doesn't come back a second time. Like, they don't come back to life a second time. They usually just die for the second time. Because that's how they did it with Darth Maul. That's how they did it with Sidious. That's how they've done it with a number of other people. But you never really see them come back a third time.
Okay, so as much as I respect that, like, why in the hell would they bring back Gideon and have this whole thing of, like, Gideon got away and somehow there was Beskar alloy planted into the ship where he was, and now he's on Mandalore and doing this whole thing. Like, they made
that's a plot hole. That's why I have it at like an 8.
They made this whole thing about him, and only to introduce him in the first episode that we see him was for like a
short period of time
at the round table where they're all freaking talking and shit, and they bring up Thrawn, and then the very next episode we see him on Mandalore and he's wearing a full-on suit of Beskar and whatnot. So the fact that he was just killed off because he built up all this shit, like, it kind of he's not there. No, there's no dead. If he's not dead, if there's gonna be anything, it's gonna be like he's still alive. There's gonna be some like headbutting between maybe like Thrawn and Moff Gideon or something along the lines of that. That's where I think it's gonna be heading.
Like, we do need to have something lead into the New Order.
Right.
So I think that's probably where we see Thrawn come in, because he's going to be that transition in between, would be my guess.
So maybe they're going to have like butting heads, and like Thrawn is maybe going to kill Moff Gideon, and then Thrawn's going to do his whole thing, and somebody's going to kill Thrawn because he's definitely dead.
Because he's definitely dead by the time we get further down.
Exactly. So who's going to kill Thrawn then at that point?
I don't know. You can make
We
it
shall
anybody. It could be
see.
Kylo for all we know.
Very good questions. Like I
shall
can't be the only
see.
one that thinks this. If you
Yeah.
have a comment about this shit, y'all blow us up because I want to hear your all's theories for sure.
Yes.
I definitely think there'll be season 4. I remember reading something like rumors that Pedro Pascal was overplaying the character, but I think there'll definitely be maybe even a couple more seasons.
I guess it depends on how much is left in his contract, right?
Yeah, I don't know, but
I don't remember reading anything, so that's why I posed the question.
and I interpreted how season 3 ended more as an open-ended ending. As
It's
hey,
open-ended that also
I don't think they're just
oddly
gonna
tied itself
sunset.
up well enough.
I could see how you're interpreting it. Like that's not how I interpreted. Like I interpreted it as like, hey, there's something brewing in the outer rims, which we all know what it is. But he's talking to that X-wing pilot, and he's like, I want to be a contractor, not for like. I don't think Mandalorian knows this, but obviously, us the audience know that there's something brewing in the outer rims. I think they're trying to keep him connected with the New Republic in some small way.
Yes.
So when it does start blowing up, that him and Grogu are going to be in IG-11, ready to be involved.
Okay.
Get the hands dirty.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yes.
I
absolutely love
no.
that. The fact that he was just following him
IG-12 is like, just like a little
and
mech
by
suit.
the way, you know who played him?
Who, IG-12?
Yeah.
Man, I remembered prior to you telling me this question.
It's the one actor that plays what's his name? Is it Gorg in
Yes.
Thor?
Yes.
I forget what the actor's
Hang on,
name
hang on,
is
I
/
got you.
director.
He's a director.
Christian Bale?
No. In Thor, Gorg.
Hang on.
Yeah. Gore
Oh
is...
man, I'm gonna
Gorg.
mispronounce it.
Is it Gorg?
Taika. What? Taika?
Taika
Wadi?
Watiti, something like that.
That dude.
Yeah. Show Kenny.
Am I crazy?
He's a director.
Who am I thinking of then?
Speak into the mic.
I don't know.
Sure.
I
don't know
Sorry
who
for
I'm
the
thinking
mispronouncing
of. then.
everybody, but it's Taika.
Show him on Thor. You'll recognize him. Sorry guys, we're trying to
They're trying to prove a point, but I was almost certain because I made the joke that
He's the Rock dude.
Yeah, he's the Rock guy. Gore is not the Rock
What's
dude.
the freaking dude's name? I thought it started with a G.
Gore is like the pasty white guy in Love and Thunder.
Yeah, I know.
That's Christian Bale. Because I made the joke when we did our old episode
that's how
that
you
if
get
you
Christian
live
Bale. I
long
was wondering
enough,
how
Is
Kenny
the
got
Rock
Christian
dude's
Bale.
name? I forget.
Oh my gosh, how did I get stuck being the Google person?
Am I gonna have to get there before you?
oh well. Do we just stall for time? I guess I stall for time.
Korg. I knew it was something like that.
Korg.
Sorry that everybody. Sorry.
Anyways,
Painful.
Grogu's robot, his droid, is it IG-12 or IG-11?
The robot he pilots is 12. The city marshal / the guy that detonates himself into season 2 is 11.
I freaking love that. I loved everything about watching.
You're
Grogu
like,
play
oh,
the
I
whole
can't be
thing.
captured. Guess I just die now.
No. No.
It's great. Oh boy. Oh,
The other thing I really liked was, if you guys remember, the two Mandalorians that were playing that board game.
Yeah.
And they started fighting each other in the ship. And they're like Bo-Katan and Mando.
Probably
They're
Pazak.
like, what do we do? Like, do we intervene? Or like, I don't know. Let them fight it out. But then Grogu with his IG-12 gets in and he's like, no. And Bo-Katan's like, did you teach him that? And he's like, I didn't teach him that. So I guess that I was Skywalker. I guess he was remembering his Jedi training.
He never had any Jedi training. That was the entire arc that they had in the second season.
He had a little bit.
He technically
all of
he
like
had-
3-4 days, maybe like weeks.
Fine. Where did he learn it from then, Kenny?
It's just one of those things where the Yoda race is just inherently good with the Force and are peaceful. I don't know.
Yes, they are stronger with the Force.
They are
as opposed
extra
with-
Force sensitive.
Extra Force sensitive as opposed to other creatures. in the
Anyways, it made me
universe.
hopeful because I was reading too much thing that Grogu is going to end up bad. and I hope not.
I don't know how they're going to fit a helmet on a Yoda because their ears are massive. But
Well, they made some armor for him already.
sure, but that's
small.
a bit easy.
Why? You know what? Fuck it. Maybe he's gonna have some kind of helmet where his ears are popping out. I'm really curious if that happens. But anyway,
I'm sure somebody's made some concept art already of that.
I'm excited.
Yes.
I hope there is a season 4.
I do too, but I would be okay if there was not.
I would not, to be blunt.
That's fair. Jake, do you have any closing thoughts on the Mandalorian series, the Mandalorians as a creed, any of their fun backstories, anything tickle in the back of your brain that we haven't already talked about?
No, I really liked it. I thought it was a great series. Thought it was fun, entertaining. I love Baby Yoda. I hope they make a season 4. I'm excited to see them continue to build this into connecting the dots to the what is it called? Is it the New Order? Order 1? What's the
New Order is the Kylo Ren /
Kylo Ren.
Rey.
Which this is where
Skywalker
this is
stuff
leading
that
up
we
to the
see.
New Order, right? Right?
Yes.
Yeah, this is before.
Technically, yes. There's a little more.
I'm excited
There's
to
a
see
bit more time. in
Admiral
between.
Thrawn. I'm excited to learn more about him. Maybe I'll just have to watch the animated series just to learn a little bit more about
Yes.
that guy.
If you're gonna to learn just about Admiral Thrawn, just watch Star Wars Rebels.
Rebels in particular is where you're going to get more Thrawn than anything. Clone Wars is like everything prior to Order 66 and then like a little bit afterwards.
God, that last episode of Clone Wars, God, dude, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Anyway, Kenny, what are your closing thoughts? Then I'll wrap mine.
So I was actually hoping that I'd go last here.
Oh, I'll go next. It's fine.
Fine, go ahead.
So overall, the show, I feel like it's a good ride. It's very entertaining. I enjoy every bit of it. I've definitely watched every single episode, pretty much every week. And so, yeah, like I said, overall good ride. I'm left with a sense of like entertainment, but uncertainty at the same time. After each season. And so that kind of builds up the anticipation per season. So with this latest season that comes out, yeah, overall I enjoyed it, but there's still some loose ends that I feel like that need to be tied up. And so with this ending, there has to be a season 4. They need to tie up some loose ends. Otherwise I'm going to be a little frustrated. But
Okay.
maybe those loose ends could be tied up in other series,
Like
Ahsoka
or
some-
Boba Fett.
Yeah, well, I don't really give a shit about Boba Fett, to be honest. It started out good, but
Oh, the best episode of Boba Fett was when
The Mandalorian,
Mandalorian
showed
was in
up,
it.
and then it became the Book of the Mandalorian and not the Book of Boba Fett.
anyway,
Anyways,
that's pretty much all I have for this.
yeah. So my closing thoughts is that I enjoy the expansion of probably my favorite, I guess, space creed that Star Wars has come up with. It's no longer just a solo alien race, but like, a mixture of people, of, just whoever they happen to find that they can convince to wear a helmet for the rest of their life. And all the fun shenanigans that you can get into when involved in space war. But I enjoyed the series. Again, I don't think they need to come out with a 4th. I liked where they ended the 3rd. I would still gladly watch a 4th episode or 4th season. But as we have said many times already, this podcast.
This is the way.
And thanks, everybody, for listening to our lovely little podcast here. You can find us on Spotify, Google, several other different podcast streaming services, as well as Facebook and Instagram. Constantly posting new material there. And do like and subscribe. Leave us a comment. Leave us a fun review if you'd like. We love to hear from you all. And I'm getting the weird hold on just a moment from Colin. Colin, what do you have to say?
The last thing that I want to say, may the 4th be with you.
and also with you.
See you, everybody.
See you, everybody.